Hi everyone, I'm Joelleen from JWP and I've just invited Vaughne to come and chat with me about postnatal nutrition and self-care, and we'll talk a bit about breastfeeding. It's going to be a really good conversation. Let's see where she is at. Hello. We're looking forward to your questions as well. So Vaughne and I are talking about simple ways to do a bit of self-care. She's unable to join. I'll just see what's happening. One moment. Oh, hi, Vaughne, you're here? Hello. Great, she's here, which is good. Just waiting for the tech to catch up. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I appreciate your time this evening. It's great. It's going to be a good chat. We're hoping to answer questions as they pop up, and Vaughn and I will just kind of go through the conversation when she appears. Thank you for all the waves. I appreciate the support. This is great. Hi. So yeah, we want to really just have a bit of a deep dive into self-care. Vaughn and I are both naturopaths. I'm a lactation consultant, and I've also been a midwife for 12 years. So it's just such a huge passion of mine to approach this space in a really holistic way, and nutrition is such a big part of that. We've got a lot of doula community on here, which is great to see. Doulas play such a big role. Vaughn's also a doula and runs the business Mama Goodness with Jess as well, another doula. So they are so aware of the importance of good nutrition. I'm wondering what's happening with Vaughn. I'll just accept her request to join as well, see what's happening. But feel free to just ask some questions while we're waiting for Vaughn to load. If this doesn't work out shortly, I might hop off the live and then hop back in. I'll see what's happening. I've accepted her a couple of times and it's not working. Fingers crossed this starts to work soon. Just trying to accept her. So yeah, if anyone has questions, I would love for you to ask them. We're also going to have this recorded and we'll post it on our profile, so we can just share that around as well. I'll just try and ask Vaughn to join again, see what's happening. This is not what I planned.
God, I made it.
Oh, you're here.
I was sitting in, I don't know what land there for a while. I was like, please. Hello, everybody.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, big relief. Okay. Nothing can be as stressful as that after this.
EarPods? Like, technology is just not my best friend. So we made it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
And thank you for that beautiful introduction. You said everything I could.
Oh, good. You could hear it. Okay, great. Okay. Was there anything you wanted to add?
Oh my gosh. I read. Where should we start? I did hear most parts of it, but in general, no. You really summarized it incredibly. I guess we've connected a lot over the last couple of years as naturopaths. I love that facet of our relationship, and it's just so nice to also have that inter-referral. And we've supported a lot of mums together on the journey, so it's kind of nice today to get together and be able to pull it all apart. We never actually are in the same house at the same time or with the same client. So today we can kind of share notes and put our heads together with something we're super passionate about.
Yeah, great. I 100% agree. And how fun would it be if we were at the client's house at the
It
same
nearly
time. It would
happened.
just be a party.
Almost. I think there was one day, but
Yeah.
the dream is sort of to have a big holistic clinic where there's incredible lactation consultants and naturopaths and therapists,
Oh,
and
amazing. Yeah.
one day amongst it all. But
Yeah, love the
ditto.
vision. Yeah. And Mama Goodness is doing big things. I might just plug the
Yeah,
book really
yes.
quickly.
Absolutely.
You want
So
to talk about that?
we've sort of started to post about it. I know Jess did a big post the other week, but we have our first collaborative book, Jess Prescott and I, who run Mama Goodness, Life After Birth. So it's released on the 18th of January, which is very exciting. It's been a labor of love and all of that. It's incredible. It's a really immersive, inclusive book. We sort of cut it up into chapters of preparing for motherhood, and it's very much based on the mother. I think so many books out there on the market are really about preparing for baby and what you should buy for the nursery and ways that you can settle them and breastfeed and all of those things. But this really pairs it back and looks at how you can prepare with your relationships, with partners, with friends, with family, how you can sort of do, you know, the work with yourself to get in the headspace physically, how to bring in all of the nutritious side of things as well. Jess obviously has been a cookbook writer in the past. She's a doula. I'm a doula and naturopath, so we've put all of that together to give you a really beautiful guide that is, very evidence-based. We cover breastfeeding. We've got a small chapter, very small. The book couldn't fit too much, but we do broach on that from a holistic lens. We then focus on the immediate sort of postpartum, that first 40 days, nesting and resting in at home. And then I have written a lot of information on beautiful herbs, nutrients, foods to sort of focus on, blood tests that you should be asking your GP for at 6 weeks. And sort of moving forward if there are any hormonal issues or concerns. And then, we sort of finish up the book with an incredible chapter on postpartum is forever. So, you know, once your kids are growing a bit older, it's really a Bible for parents and mothers, and it's incredible. It's very inclusive for partners as well, and touches on unconventional postpartum too. Yeah.
Amazing. That just sounds so needed. And I guess it does, you know, segue quite well into our conversation, because this nutrition piece is so much about looking after yourself as a mum, to be the mum you want to be, to feel good, yes, to create good breast milk, but it's really nutrition is a really foundational, you know, self-care.
It's huge.
Piece, you know,
it's huge, and you would have seen it, I think, too, as a
so huge
midwife and lactation consultant who's worked in the hospital system. Like, you're a naturopath and you work holistically now, but I don't know, I go in for birth, and in the hospital system, you know, their hands are tied. But from that side of things, nutrition's terrible. You know, you start life, especially if you do have a hospital birth, being fed horrendous food, and I think it's so sad.
I know.
And there's just so much that goes into fueling yourself. And I guess we'll cover that today with, you know, hydration and the key nutrients and the macro and micronutrients.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
where do we start?
Okay, well, let's get into it. Just quickly about the hospital food thing is actually a really good point, because you can't rely on the hospital to provide everything that you need. You know, as a midwife, and this isn't a public hospital system in New Zealand, I used to see white toast with jam and then Milo,
breakfast
so that kind of chocolatey drink, and that was given to a mum when she had birthed her baby, and I was like, this is just so not helpful.
It's so devoid of nutrients. Cups of jelly
definitely.
And white sandwiches, and you just think of all of the nutrients that go into growing a baby. Like, you wouldn't go into a marathon, you know, there is that comparison of birth to a marathon, and it's so true. You wouldn't fuel yourself. Analogy. You wouldn't train for all of those months before and prepare for birth all those months before without filling your body with nutrients that are going to help you heal and repair and replenish. And you think of all the, you know, blood loss, regardless 100%. Whether or not it's a vaginal birth or a cesarean birth, you know, you do lose a significant amount of blood. protein requirements, healthy fats, warming, nourishing food.
Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely.
100%. So I guess if we're kind of maybe talking beyond that sort of first post-birth meal, maybe how do mums really set themselves up each day? You know, what does a good postpartum meal day look like? What are we having for breakfast? When are we having breakfast? What do good snacks look like? And then I know we're going to talk about coffee and caffeine a little bit as well. So what would a
oh no, I was going to say this is our
what were you
favorite
going to say?
topic. We send each other voice memos all the time about this. And I think it's really paring it back to basic fundamentals of nutrition. And I know you love this side of it as well, but you know, there are macronutrients and there are micronutrients, and I think it all just gets quite confusing for people. And when you're exhausted, you know, the last thing that mums need to be doing when they're giving birth, coming home, resting in with their baby, they're having sleepless nights and exhausted, the last thing they want to do is be having to think about these grand meals that they need to be creating to fuel them. And it can become quite stressful, I think, thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I fueling myself?
I agree.
But it is really important. And I think it's just about creating a really solid plate with each kind of meal. And we, again, talk about this as well, but really looking after your blood sugar balance through the day. And someone who talks about this incredibly is the glucose goddess. But yeah, she's the queen. But there are some other people out there where a lot of my sort of, you know, off the back of the science degree that we've done in naturopathy, there's some more recent, you know, research that's come out too, that the likes of Lily Nichols, Oscar Serralak and people like that have put together. And it just shows how important good quality proteins, healthy fats, those sort of slow carbohydrates, those complex carbohydrates that aren't shooting your blood sugar, you know, into and out of the stratosphere. Hydration with good quality, exactly, not just caffeine and living a life on caffeine because you're exhausted and constantly in that state of tiredness. It's really not a good for your adrenals and that sort of blood sugar response. But a day for a mum, really, of good quality food that's going to fuel you through has really adequate protein sources. So starting the day with a savory breakfast for me is something that I couldn't recommend well enough.
I agree. I notice my energy if I sort of maybe, you know, I'm having the odd morning where I'm a bit slow to have breakfast, or if I don't have a savory breakfast, which is very rare for me these days, that I don't feel as strong when I'm exercising later in the day, or just I'm maybe a bit more prone to craving things and, you know, craving those sweetness. That's such a sign that your blood sugar is doing this rather than like a nice kind of stable,
and
stable
it's true.
zone.
Like, you know, we understand that because when you look at carbohydrates, we need it for fuel, like all of our muscles and all of our, you know, our thyroid and all of our body parts need carbohydrates to fuel themselves. But the type of carbohydrate that you're eating is really important. When you've got a refined carbohydrate, like a piece of white toast or your Weet Bix or something like that, it's been stripped of fiber, it's been stripped of any proteins and nutrients. And so if you're starting the day by eating that, it's devoid of anything that's actually going to keep you full. And exactly like you said, that feeling of like having an energy spike, and it feels great for a little while. It's kind of like if you're eating that piece of cake. Exactly.
Short-lived.
And so, you know, starting the day and with a good quality piece of sourdough bread that has some of those proteins and fibers in it, loading it with more types of, you know, good proteins and fats, really beautiful quality eggs, a couple of eggs with some avocado. You know, you can, if you do, especially through winter, people sort of crave your oats and things like that. And it is okay to, you know, occasionally have that, but, you know, pimp it up with some protein powder and some nuts and seeds and nut butters and, good quality yogurt.
Oats are 100% of fat as well. But just to talk about oats, and I also think muesli, those are such popular breakfasts where I find people might have like fruit, and berries and yogurt, and that's like a great
Yeah.
portion of a breakfast. But I find if you're having protein with not protein, porridge, with not much else on it, it's got some good fiber, but it's basically a straight carb. So even though it might feel filling at the time, it doesn't set your blood sugar up for that balance. And if your blood sugar is not balanced, the point we're trying to drive here is that nothing else is going to be balanced. So your energy, your hormones for breast milk is not going to be balanced. So that's, I guess, why it's just so important. And I guess touching on sort of what you've talked about, some really good things like the yummy sourdough, really nutritious, good eggs. I agree. If mums are feeling quite overwhelmed, I recommend hard boiling a batch of eggs at the start of the week and then just smash it on a piece of toast and then you can get going. It's, it doesn't require too much time. Even though like the muesli bowl's really quick, it's trying to kind of push past that and choose a more sustainable option.
Like meal prepping, I think for new mums is just so important, and it means that you've got a day that you ought dishing that out to other people to do. Exactly. Bringing your village, getting a partner, your family, friends, or even if you have the resources and are able to afford it, getting some meals delivered in just to lighten that load, but knowing that you're kind of hitting those nutrition goals that you do want to be making, and it's as simple as as you said, having a hard-boiled eggs or making some eggy muffins or a frittata, and it's just like whack it in the oven. You can add some roast veggies and things like that are that added fiber and some beautiful nutrients that you get from fruit and veg that you still want to be having. It takes a little bit of thought, but I guess and I can imagine you probably say the same thing too when you're chatting to mums. It's like once you get in a routine, it's not so hard.
100%. I so agree. I love the idea of the frittata because that's like a whole almost a week's worth of breakfast.
And eggs right there. Beautiful. Choline.
We love eggs. Touching on the caffeine part, I know Glucose Goddess, if any of you follow her, she's got these great graphs that kind of show what happens to your blood sugar when you have caffeine on an empty stomach specifically, and your blood sugar goes really high, and also your stress hormones go high as well. And I think generally I take a sort of more caffeine-free approach to life. I wasn't always that way, and I've been in that kind of, I can appreciate that state of mind where you just can't comprehend letting your coffee go. You're like, how am I going to live without that? But you do survive, and you actually, I think when you're on the other side, you just feel more consistent. I think you sleep better. How important is it to optimize every aspect of sleep when you're not really getting a guaranteed night of sleep with a new baby in the house?
And it's incredibly dehydrating. Like, it's great. If you're gonna have a coffee, you can absolutely do it, but just make sure that you line your stomach with something beforehand. You're gonna have, as you said, that increased cortisol spike, which is causing you to go into that overdrive of nervous system response. If you're exhausted and your baby's unsettled and you haven't got anything in your belly and your partner's gone to work and you're stuck under a sleeping baby, you're not going to have the chance to then get up and prepare yourself something that's nutrient dense to then fuel yourself with through the morning. And it's kind of this vicious cycle. You can kind of see where mums do, go off the rails in that sense, and you're left feeling depleted. And if you're not fueling yourself through the morning, but caffeine is there's so many other beautiful options that we can do as well. You love a matcha?
I do. I love matcha. You just have to, I like that post that you put up, because it's about finding a good quality one. They're not all made equal, and I find with matcha and green tea, it's really easy to burn it, and then that's where you get that really overly bitter taste from. Which is everyone. It is. It's very like off-putting.
It is a specific like flavor as well. You kind of got to get used to it. But that, or a chai, just there's other options. There's also some beautiful ginseng teas, just plain green tea, your peppermint teas that can be hydrating, but also stimulating without having that intense cortisol spike that people generally have.
Exactly. Yeah, I do like nettle and
Yum.
peppermint tea because I find nettle isn't
Mm.
oh, we've got a question popping up. I'm finding that nettle isn't a very tasty herb, but combined with a little bit of
Yeah,
peppermint is
delish.
really
That's a good
nice.
question. Um,
So we typically have a large glass of water before coffee in the morning. James will have a long black. I usually have it with oat milk. Should I line my stomach with something else first? Short answer, yes. If you can have breakfast before you have your coffee, that would be really ideal. And just keep in mind that oat milk is again quite carby. So if you're having a small amount, that's probably okay. But if you're sort of having a more larger amount, just watch your
totally.
macro carb count
I think another thing
on the
that,
back there.
like when I'm in my naturopathy consults with people, I say have breakfast, before your coffee, but you don't have to have a big slap up brekkie. I'm not saying you need to go out and like have 2 eggs
Yeah,
on multiple pieces of sourdough with avocado. Like if it's a case of just getting something in your gob that's gonna, line the stomach, exactly, reduce that cortisol spike, start that blood sugar regulation that's going to continue through the day. And that's what, studies are showing, and the glucose goddess speaks about so often, is that the first spikes you have of the day set up your basically blood sugar response for the rest of the day. So if you can eat something savory, make sure that things are like on a level playing field in the morning, your energy is going to be clearer, and everything thereafter that you eat, you can have a coffee later in the morning, or even just straight after breakfast. You can have something, a little bit of a sweet treat, like a date or a cookie later in the day, and you won't respond as severely as if you were to have it, earlier in the day, without having some really good quality fats, proteins, fiber to absorb it and slow down that blood sugar spike.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also the option of doing like a more bulletproof style coffee. So putting some collagen powder and then like a really nice fat, like a ghee,
like
or
coconut oil,
coconut oil breakdown.
totally.
Yeah, MCT oil. That's I guess another good way to, if you're really insistent on having your coffee first thing, that you make that coffee a really like as balanced as
absolutely.
it can be.
And so obviously hydration's huge in my side of things. It just obviously helps with that blood flow and the coagulability of blood for blood sugar. If you're not hydrated, it makes your blood stickier, and you have a less of an ability to process sort of that glucose in your blood. But from a breastfeeding point of view, how does hydration help us?
I like to kind of explain it like breast milk is over 80% water. So it's your baby's main hydration. You're not giving anything extra to your baby apart from breast milk. So if you are making a full supply of breast milk, you're essentially sacrificing a lot of that hydration to your breast milk. So it's so important to stay really hydrated. It is. And aiming for, around at least 2 to 3 liters of water a day more when it's warmer. We're heading into summer now, thank goodness. But that's really important. And having lots of mums will actually have a surge of oxytocin when their breast milk starts flowing, and they get this insane amount of thirst, and they're like reaching for their drink bottle. So just making sure that whoever's in the house can, it's their job to keep that drink bottle filled up to the top, and have multiple drink bottles. Exactly. Totally. So you've always got that hydration, and another, whenever you need it.
You obviously love a good herbal tea, but you don't have to just be drinking that pure water all day every day. I know, like, the different types of conversations I have with all my clients, some people hate chilled water, some people hate hot water. It's just so individual. And I find like they add to your daily total of hydration. So really good quality, beautiful, sort of organic herbal teas that you can mix and blend. I've got a few favorites. I know you mentioned before nettle, which is incredibly nutrient and mineral rich. There's great for hair growth.
Great for hair growth.
Chamomile is really soothing for the nervous system and good for digestion. Lemon balm again is really beautiful for both of those things. What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, so nettle definitely. I like raspberry leaf because it's just sort of generally very toning for the mother, at that time. And then I
Mm,
also like fennel because it's in a lot of
yeah.
kind of milk boosting teas. So and it's also really good for gas. So I like to think that that
Oh
translates
yeah.
into the
Yeah.
baby's
Yeah.
digestive system as well. So on some level, whatever the mum is consuming is going into the baby, yeah, on some level. So I think why not kind of drink herbal
Yeah.
teas that are going to benefit
Absolutely. And
both
you do
parties,
see, like,
right?
I guess,
Yeah.
I don't know if we were going to touch on this, but food intolerances and allergies and things like that with breastfeeding and nutrition,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you do see it. I was chatting to someone I know today about even just some supplements and how their baby's so sensitive to it. So being aware that, as well, like caffeine,
Yeah.
kind of going back to that, if you're drinking 1, 2, 3 cups a day and your
100%.
baby's, unsettled, I wonder why, if it's the same as, other foods that may potentially be giving them an upset belly.
Yeah. And babies are a lot slower at
Mm,
metabolizing caffeine than what an adult is as well. So we've got to think about it like that. And if you are consuming caffeine,
yeah,
having it really early in the day so it's not affecting that nighttime, night and day rhythm in the
totally,
baby's
totally.
body as well.
Can you confirm for
Mm,
me breast milk? I've like read some studies and I was looking into it a bit with writing our book, but the levels of hormones in terms of like melatonin, cortisol in breast milk, depending on what time a baby's fed, is that a thing?
yeah, yeah, it is, and it's quite, I guess,
Mm,
recent research in the last couple of years. Yeah, so you obviously drinking breast milk fresh from the breast is the
mm,
best way because it will feed information to the baby's body about what time of day it is. So those levels do
fascinating.
fluctuate throughout
Yeah, I think it was in
throughout the day and
response
night.
to
Yeah.
someone who was
So
pumping and then feeding their baby that breast milk, and it was like if they were giving them
yeah,
morning milk at
yeah,
night, it was just blowing my mind. Just side note.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's tricky with the pumping because we don't want to kind of add that sort of pressure. But if you can kind of label your
Mm,
milks with time of day and give it at the closest time possible, that
yeah,
is definitely
love it,
ideal.
love it. Um,
Yeah,
and I guess
yeah.
like other nutrients, I know
This has gone.
I
Oh,
know
this
it
has gone
has
so
flown by. I feel like we
fast.
need to do 2.0.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I would love to do a part two or part three. We'll see how it goes. But let's talk about our workshops coming up quickly because I think this is where everyone
Yeah,
can just get a little bit of a deeper
totally.
taste with all of this. So my one's next week actually. So I'm doing a whole deep dive into preparing for breastfeeding and it's really born out of my sort of awareness around mums coming to me in the hospital system or privately and just being so unsatisfied with their
Mm,
experience in terms of sort of the lack of knowledge and just lack of feeling prepared or just being given information that wasn't necessarily the right information or enough information. So I've really taken all my experience as a midwife, lactation consultant, and naturopath, and really put that into an hour-long presentation, which I know will
oh,
just be so
amazing.
so
Because I have just
helpful.
so many clients that do come home,
I'm excited.
from the hospital if that's been where they've birthed, and there's just so many questions and,
Mm,
different shifts. It's not that
yeah,
some people are lucky enough to have that continuity, but they might see 4 or 5 different midwives in the couple of days that they stay, and they all have different tips. Yeah, exactly. And it's
at
like
least,
trying to
yeah,
establish a really
yeah,
good, evidence-based, modern way of breastfeeding, that also supports your nervous system from that holistic
exactly.
side of things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree totally. I think
Mm,
modern, I like that word there because I think, when I'm making content, I'm trying to think about what would
yeah.
I like to read.
Yeah. And there's
So
just,
yeah.
I know, sorry, what were you going
And
to say?
no, I was just going to
Spruik
say
mine.
share about your webinar as
Yeah,
well
well,
because
we
I'm really
didn't get to
excited about
cover a
that.
lot
Yeah,
today,
please do.
obviously, in terms of the nutrition side of things. We don't have a set date. It's going to probably be in the last week of October. Similarly, it's going to sort of be an hour deep dive into sort of paring back, there's just so many unknowns. I think from the moment that you get pregnant, there's so many unknowns about what to put in your body and what to fuel yourself with. And especially more so in the postpartum, you know, you don't now have that time to just sit down and read and pare back and prepare beautiful foods with all the time in the world. So really pulling it apart again from that very, you know, evidence-based lens. And I'm kind of piecing together everything that I talk to my mums about in my naturopathy sessions, about how to build a really good, you know, day of eating really solid breakfasts with your, you know, quality proteins, fats, carbs, and all of the micronutrients as well, which we didn't quite get to touch on today. You know, your choline and your DHAs, your iodine for thyroid health, you know, your calcium, vitamin E,
and for breast health,
which is why I think we should get back together. Maybe we could do this again in a couple of weeks before my workshop. Just to give people a bit of a taste test. And really looking at, I guess, a few of the foundational things and main health concerns that do pop up for new mums. You know, thyroid concerns, postpartum thyroiditis, as well as just mood and energy. And I know that's something we wanted to touch on as a foundational part of good breast flow and breast milk production, but nervous system response is a huge thing. I've been having so many conversations with mums lately who've just been going through a really rough time in life, not so much with their feeding to start with. They've been on a really good trajectory, even if they've had multiple bouts of mastitis or whatever has popped up for them. But just understanding that it doesn't actually just equal, oh, my breast has stopped producing things and I just need to eat a whole heap of galactagogues, you know, and pump or express. It's like, what is my nervous system doing? What is your immune system doing? How are your emotions? What support do you have? I know that's like your number one thing that you talk about is who do you have around you and what's your environment like? And is there anything that you have, you know, tips for, I guess, for nervous system to finish us off?
I think when, you know, a mum's trying to make a lot of breast milk, they're very busy doing that. But I think sometimes it's taking a step back and like, actually, you know, a little nap can do wonders for your milk production. Or, you know, if you're just not quite getting to that point where you're able to fall asleep, it's more how can you rest while being awake? And that would be, you know, I love diaphragmatic breathing, so really deep belly breathing, which you can do when you're no longer pregnant. So just exploring that. And if your baby is you know, sleeping on you or you're feeling quite nap trapped, they'll actually benefit from those slower, deeper
their nervous
breaths.
System will regulate with your nervous system.
Exactly.
I think it's just about that, you know, that mother-baby dyad that we always come back to talking about, and how regulating your nervous system for a whole heap of reasons beyond breastfeeding is actually going to make you and your baby a lot more settled and grounded and connected.
Definitely. Definitely. I think that's a nice note to kind of end on. And I'm sure there'll be plenty more of these to come. And I will figure out how to get this recorded and uploaded and shared.
Half hour, but we should definitely do it again. I'd love to in a couple of weeks' time.
It has. And maybe a bit longer because it's flowing by.
45 minutes or something next time.
Well, thank you for everyone who's joined. It's been great to see everyone's names popped up, and thank you for the questions and spending time with us. And
love it. And if you have any other questions as well, just like pop into our DMs. It gives us really good ideas for next time.
Totally.
And we'll definitely get back together in a few weeks. Thank you so much, love.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye. See ya.